Okay.
Well, yeah, you would abstain, you're gonna abstain on that,
Well.
Yeah, we'll abstain on that.
but, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're here, yep, 6:30. You guys will please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So, thank everybody for coming out. I think probably first, I'm going to swear in the mayor, she can swear in the new council members, and then we can get started right now. I guess, can we call roll now, or?
Yes, you can go ahead and call the roll.
Okay. Mayor Carney?
Here.
Mr. Rucker?
Here.
Mr. Udaly?
Here.
Ms. Ferguson?
Here.
Mr. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Sims?
Here.
Mr. Terry?
Here.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, state your name,
I, Jody Carney,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Ohio,
and of the state of Ohio,
and that I will obey and comply
and that I will obey and comply
with the provisions of the charter and ordinances
with the provisions of the charter and ordinances
of the Village of Plain City,
of the Village of Plain City,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
to which I've been elected.
to which I've been elected.
Congratulations.
Thank you. At this time, I will swear in the new council members. Mr. Terry?
One at a time,
Yeah,
Is anybody taking pictures?
yeah, we'll take pictures.
Okay.
Okay. Say, repeat after me. I, Michael Terry,
I, Michael Terry,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Ohio,
and of the state of Ohio,
and that I will obey and comply
and that I will obey and comply
with the provisions of the charter and ordinances
with the provisions of the ordinances in the charter
of the Village of Plain City,
of the Village of Plain City,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
to which I have been elected.
to which I have been elected.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, James Udaly,
Solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Ohio,
and of the state of Ohio,
and that I will obey and comply
and I will obey and comply
with the provisions of the charter
with the provisions of the charter
and ordinances of the Village of Plain City,
and the ordinances of City, Plain City,
and will faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
to which I have been elected.
to which I have been elected.
Congratulations. I state your name.
I, Carrie Ferguson,
Solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Ohio,
and of the state of Ohio,
and that I will obey and comply
and that I will obey and comply
with the provisions of the charter and ordinances
with provisions of the charter and ordinances
of the Village of Plain City,
of the Village of Plain City,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
to which I have been elected.
to which I have been elected.
Congratulations. And Mr. Sims. I state your name,
I, James Sims,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Ohio,
and of the state of Ohio,
and that I will obey and comply
and that I will obey and comply
with the provisions of the charter
with the provisions of the charter
and ordinances of the Village of Plain City,
and ordinance of the Village of Plain City,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
to which I have been elected.
to which I have been elected.
Congratulations. At this moment, we're going to go out in the hall and take a group photo because we have not had a chance to really do that the past year, so we want to get that done right now.
I don't wear a collar. I got someone with a collar on, man.
I have to wear it 5 days after we got exposure. Oh, you do? Okay, good.
I passed.
Really?
Being in the house, sleeping inside, didn't get it to me, I don't know.
There's nothing.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Okay. Is there a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda?
So moved.
Right, I do have one correction I do wish to ask Mr. Lafayette. Could we move the one executive session to old business so that way we would be able to come back with an answer?
Cause I think
Yeah,
we're
you
gonna
can
have to
move it
take,
around.
we're probably have to take action coming out of that.
Yeah, I mean, for the courtesy, if we're gonna take.
Rather
action.
make everybody wait and
Right, yeah, no, that's fine. You guys can set the agenda the way you want.
the second.
The second.
To old business?
We need to get clarification. For like the meeting minutes,
Mm-hmm.
so since we're not sworn in yet, do we just abstain or?
You would abstain since you didn't participate in that one.
Right.
Yes, yes.
So approve the agenda.
You can approve the agenda since we're all sworn in, but yeah, the council meeting you'll abstain. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let me,
we got three.
typically, we need 4 votes for things, and this is charter language. I'm not sure it applies in this case. Abstentions don't count, okay? So we need somebody's gonna have to just trust themselves that they
But they
are
weren't
okay with the minutes.
at the meeting.
Pardon me?
They weren't at the meeting.
Doesn't matter.
Would,
They can read the minutes.
They can't
I
approve
was
minutes if they
I was
want.
at
Oh,
the
well,
meeting,
they
I just
can.
wasn't on council.
on council, okay, okay.
Yeah, I wasn't.
I mean, he is correct though, I mean, we don't only have 3 that can.
We were both here for the meeting.
For the meeting,
You know
that's
what,
right.
We
if
just
it's
didn't-
gonna be a
You
big
guys can, I
deal,
wasn't.
we could wait till the next meeting to approve the minutes. They don't have to be approved.
But we still can't approve the minutes
For this
from
day.
the last meeting.
That's what I mean.
That's what
Minutes
I'm
from the
talking
last meeting don't have to be approved tonight. They can wait till the next meeting.
But if they're.
It wouldn't
Yeah,
matter.
they still don't have to do it. Before,
Okay.
I get it, yeah.
I think we
We can wait till next year and they still won't.
That's still right now for, right. So,
Second, the motion to approve the agenda, which is actual.
I'm sorry, you just voted.
yeah,
Okay, there's
Mr.
a,
Rucker,
Yes.
Mr. Udaly,
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
yes.
Mr. Sims,
Yes.
Mr. Terry.
Yes.
thank you. And a motion to approve the December 13th council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Did you motion to approve it? I'll second.
Oh, no, John seconded.
Second.
Okay,
Mr. Rucker,
Yes.
Mr. Udaly,
Abstain.
Ms. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
yes,
Mr. Sims,
Yes.
Mr. Terry.
Yes.
Thank you.
thank you.
I mean, you did witness what was
Yes.
there.
Yes,
What went on.
which is, that's a good understanding. Thank you. Wanted to do a presentation this evening, and if Ms. Hava Loudon would please come forward. January kicks off Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and she is now the executive director of the She Dreams Again organization, nonprofit, which is located in our uptown, and they're grand opening is tomorrow evening, if you'd like to give some background.
So we have been working with women for 3 years now, and we tomorrow have our grand opening for a physical location. It's right across from Main Street Treasures, and we have an open house from 5 till 8, and you're all welcome to come learn a little bit more.
So I would like to present this proclamation in honor of Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Whereas human trafficking is a nationwide public health and civil rights crisis, its victims and survivors are everywhere, with the village of Plain City, Ohio being no exception. Whereas all communities must seek to prevent human trafficking before it can occur by promoting safe, healthy, and supportive environments. Whereas law enforcement, federal and state agencies, private industry, governmental organizations, and nonprofits, including She Dreams Again in Plain City, Ohio, are working to end human trafficking in Union and Madison County through building awareness and increasing protection for the vulnerable in the community. These organizations seek to connect the local community to the needs of the victims so that everyone may experience healing and purpose in life. Whereas the village of Plain City strives to become a place where human trafficking does not exist, where people have opportunities available to them, and where all people are treated as fully human and worthy of a supportive community and freedom. Now therefore, I, Jody Carney, Mayor of Plain City, do hereby proclaim January 2022 as Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month in the village of Plain City, Ohio. In witness whereof, I, Jody Carney, Mayor of Plain City, Ohio, do hereby fix by official signature and the official seal of the village of Plain City on this 10th day, January 2022. Thank you for coming this evening. I would like to offer this proclamation
Thank you.
to She Dreams Again.
What time is the grand opening?
The ribbon cutting is at 5 because of the light. We wanted it, but it ends from 5 till 8, but probably most people pop in between 6 and 8.
Thank you.
Any questions? You're welcome.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Okay, moving on to our annual reorganization and 2022 appointments. In accordance to the charter, I took the time for appointing the committee members, and I have that before me as we go down through the different council. Yes. So, council president. Is there a nomination for council president?
I'll nominate Michael Terry.
I'll second that.
Yes, I accept.
Do I need to call roll after each meeting? Okay.
We'll actually see if there are any other nominations.
Are there any other nominations for council president? Hearing none. Nominations are closed.
Aye.
Mr. Udaly?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Sins?
Yes.
Mr. Terry?
Abstain.
You can vote for yourself.
Class here this one.
Congratulations. Okay, thank you. Now going through the different committee appointments and reviewing the charter, I took it upon myself to write down who I felt best with your different strengths and experiences. Wrote down for BZ, for Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. Udaly. Parks and Recreation, Mr. Reed. Personnel and Finance and CIP, Ms. Ferguson. Design Review Board, Mr. Rucker is still on you or on their?
Yeah, I'm on by appointment.
Appointment.
So, or
And-
by ordinance or whatever. for
And-
the year.
Okay. And then Fire District Representative, I have James. And with our rebranding, and we talked about different things on communication, added marketing communications as well. So I didn't know what
Yeah,
everybody's
so I had actually added
Yes.
the marketing communications, brought that up. I thought that, and I talked to a few of the members, with our rebranding, with the technology, with the fact that like during the boil alert, we kind of dropped the ball. I thought that this year it might be good as we moved ourselves off of planning and zoning and we are considering at least potentially combining some. I wanted to bring it to you guys and say, hey, are you guys interested in creating something like this? Obviously, and I don't know 100% how this works, but I think we'd have to like do an ordinance or a resolution or something. I don't know if we just by motion create and then assign someone and then they have to build everything out. I was just thinking that it's something that we might want to have if we're going to be looking at adding new committees. I thought this was a good time to bring it up and see what your guys' thoughts were on it.
Before we go there, we need just to rewind just a smidge.
Sure.
For fire district,
Yes.
you also need to appoint a alternate.
Oh, an alternate on. Okay, so, and Mr. Rucker, you have, with your experience,
Yeah, I would probably be the alternate, if that makes sense. If that's okay with you, it's up to you.
that would be fine as well.
So I guess, I guess when it comes to this type of stuff, do we want to accept the mayor's recommendations first and vote on those? Because we do have to, like any committee, accept them onto the committees and then talk about marketing and communications at like a work session. I just want to put it out there just so everyone's aware, and I actually think this is something that Mr. Sense I talked to you about a little bit of, I thought you might be good at this, but it doesn't exist today. So it's kind of a weird thing where I just wanted to put it out there. So however you guys think this is best to approach, do we go forward with what we have today, or do we go ahead and say we'd like to create a new committee? And what are people's thoughts on
that? Well, here, Mr. Cherry, we had that conversation about marketing and communications. It's not a bad idea, but I would like to propose if we do this, we expand the of that committee into general development of the community, which would include marketing and communication. And perhaps call it a development committee instead of marketing and communications, which is development is a kind of a word we bandy about a lot, like we need to do this, we need to focus on this, la-di-da. And there's nothing officially that happens that's called development activity. So if we're going to do this, I would propose that it become the development committee and focus on the marketing, communications, planning, thinking about a vision of the future for Plain City. And I think we need to do that before we do marketing and communications. Kind of know what we're going to be marketing before we start marketing that. Because that's been also a kind of a topic that people talk about. What do you want to happen to Plain City? Do you want it to stay like it was 10 years ago? Or you want it to stay like it is now? You want it to stay a small town? You want to control growth? You want to restrict annexation? And that's what I'm talking about with the kind of vision of the future kind of decision that council needs to make before we start doing marketing of ourselves. Because at this point, I wouldn't be able to say who we're marketing to, or for what, or why we're even marketing to those.
I think, though, the most important part of this committee right now would be communications to start with, because that, to me, is something that we should have already been talking about and heading in a direction with that. And, I mean, however you want to call it, I think communications is the most important part. If it needs to be called marketing and communications for something later, that marketing could be added, but I personally feel that communications is of the utmost importance.
So what do you mean by communications? What are we
Getting the
talking
word out. I mean, it's like the boil alert that Mr. Terry, brought up. We failed in letting our residents completely know what was going on, and especially because it went for
Clearly.
several days, not just one day, or, there were people that.
And I think I put in marketing really more towards that communication idea, like communicating our plans, communicating our vision. I'm hesitant to put any sort of development in here And my reason is very specific, is that the charter removed council from planning and zoning for a reason. That we are the oversight to the planning and zoning vote, we don't wanna vote twice. We already have a planning and zoning department that is setting that agenda, and per the charter, we got removed from it. Like, to then go ahead and create a development committee kind of feels as if the spirit of what is trying to be led in the charter, we're kind of going around. So I'm very open to calling this communications and technology, and it could be all around the website and the rebranding and the communication of things and removing the marketing piece. I'm also comfortable with taking this to a work session and kind of hammering out the details in February. I just want to put it out there that it's somewhere where I think there is additional work we could be doing. And I think what its charge is, we can kind of form over a work session. Because we don't have it today, we don't get it done tonight, no biggie. But I do think it's a gap that I'd like to address in 2022. So maybe maybe we wait on really, because we don't really need to appoint anyone to this today, and wait until.
Define what the committee's gonna be first, I think.
Yeah. It's kind of, maybe that's a better approach.
Okay, do you have in mind that this is a council-only membership committee, or?
No, just like a Parks and Rec committee, membership of a council representative, but not even necessarily the chairperson. Just like any other committee where it's got citizen involvement, stakeholder involvement. I just think there's an opportunity here. And like I said, we can hammer out what it is, and maybe we can even work on a write-up. Maybe a few of us could work on a write-up of what we think it looks like, and then bring it back to like a work session, and then slightly move people around at that time to fit the best needs.
Yeah, I think you absolutely need to get the resource, we have the resources out in the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to tap into those committees.
I agree.
And with technology we got today, there's no excuse that word can't get out, and that we should have a committee based on communications, I think, that we can get it out to the residents. We are growing, and the more we grow, it's gonna be harder and harder to get the information out. We need something.
So is everybody okay with adding it and then coming back and defining?
Mayor,
Yes.
what I think is that we need to see a description of the committee before we approve it.
Yeah.
And a notation about the members, how many members of what type that we have, and what the purpose of the committee is. And so that there's no doubt about what needs to be done, it's focused.
That's something that we should be able to put off pretty quickly in a work session, I think.
If I can work on drafting something and getting it and bouncing off of administration and having something. We don't know how full February will be, but maybe March, maybe February, depending on how busy I get. But,
Yeah, because I think we're in agreement, we want it.
yeah, cool.
Okay.
I just thought it was a good time to address it, make sure people understood it as part of the reorg. I didn't necessarily think we'd have one at the end of the day. But, cool. Motion to accept the mayor's recommendations for appointments to committees.
Second.
Madam Chair, I got a few comments. This was a really, in my experience, which is one opportunity to participate in the assignment of council members to committees. It hasn't been done this way. And as I recall, there was a general discussion about what committee who would like to serve on.
It was also the charter. We haven't had the
Yes,
charter
but
yet
you
for
could-
reorg.
If we did it the way you previously did, you could appoint those people once all the dust settles on the discussion. So that's one issue. The other issue is how many additional members might be assigned to that committee. For example, there is a parentheses S on the end of the Personnel and Finance committee deal, and we did have 3 council members on that committee. I personally would like to serve on that committee. I've invested a lot of time in working on budget and financial and CIP things, and I'd like to continue working on that. So, and there might be other council members who would like to participate in more than one committee. These, after all, is where council does the in-depth work on these particular topics, and that's why we have these particular committees. So there's there's an opportunity for council members to do more than one thing here.
When looking at the different committees, and when I placed Ms. Ferguson on the Personnel and Finance Committee, she had served on that before and has an accounting background.
I
So
don't have a
felt that-
problem with that. I just would like to be on that committee also.
I'm going to-
There's a motion in a second.
Let's go ahead and vote if there's no further discussion. If you would call the roll.
Mr. Rucker,
Yes.
Mr. Daly,
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
No,
Mr. Sims.
Yes.
Mr. Terry.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Baldwin. Thank you.
so what's gonna happen to my request for being put on the personnel?
The council members voted to accept
So-
the appointment.
So I think for that specific item, I think that, for that committee, we should look at the makeup of it now, because frankly, I will probably be resigning. If I haven't already, I will be resigning. I think applications would be submitted like any other application, and then the mayor, per the charter, holds the right to appoint members. So in my mind, we would follow no different process than our normal process. We would have people apply for the open position, and Mayor Kearney would take those and recommend appointments, and then council would vote. I think that outside of that, there's nothing really we need to do.
I kind of get the feeling that there's an effort here to make it difficult for me to get on the finance committee. This is not making sense to me, that you would require a council member to go through the application process when I just put the ID on the table. It could be easily done right now. And if that's happening, then I don't appreciate it.
What's the charter state? We have to be on the council, from council, just one.
I don't even know if we have to have one for the charter, but I think, I tried to pull it quickly up, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't read in detail. But under the general powers and duties, appoint members to boards and commissions with the approval of council, it's clearly in there. The Personnel and Finance Committee itself is not a charter, committee, so it doesn't really have a makeup in the charter. I'm guessing there's an ordinance, maybe, or a resolution or motion we can pull up for the makeup of the body. Is it all residents or non-residents? I'm just trying to be very straightforward that I don't actually know the answer to that specific question.
There's no limit, I know the answer, there's no limit on the number of members council members that can be on, all 6 members of council could be on the committee if they wish.
No.
Oh, yes, they actually could, because those are open meetings.
They can,
And they
but we
wouldn't violate
would have
open
to submit
meetings.
just like any other resident in the city if they want to.
Well, I don't
if they want to
think
do.
that's actually necessary, we have never done that in the past. And the rules have not changed. So, you know what, you're just resisting this way too much for me to be comfortable with it. So why don't you go on to the next agenda item?
I'll be going into reports. We wrapped up December. I assisted with the Mayors for Mayfield, Kentucky tornado relief efforts, and we had a great outpour of support from the Plain City community to help haul the truck. Many community members made donations and drop-offs that day, and we were able to get a good amount started, and it went to London next. And I know I'm still checking into seeing if they're going to be doing another truck soon. And the driver sent back pictures, and it was very, very heartbreaking to see the devastation that that community faced. Starting off here for the new year, just working with She Dreams Again on their ribbon cutting for tomorrow, and they're looking at doing their 5K race here in Plain City this year. It's been at Prairie Oaks Metro Park, but due to some of their regulations at the Metro Park, they would like to host it in town, which is great because with UPCO disbanding, that kind of left us without a race, charity race that has been, and so it kind of helps to fill that void. So just getting kind of back into the new year, and that's all I have on my report. Ms. Sonnet?
Thank you, Mayor. I have none.
Okay. Thank you. Chief McKee?
I just have a couple things, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to welcome all the new council members. And the second, there will be a public march on January 22nd of this year in favor of pro-life movement, starting at the St. Joseph Parish Activity Center behind the fire department. They will be marching east on West Main Street, up to Park Street, and then back to the parish. They wanted to use the streets. I kindly talked them into using the sidewalks. So they'll be doing that day. They don't know how many people expect it to be. One could be 100. I will have my guys there to assist them across 42. And after that, they're kind of rolling around down the sidewalk. Then lastly, the police department received a check from the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Since we sent Officer Cody to the CIP training, they sent us an $1,800 check. $1,800 is $1,800. So anyhow, that's all I have this time, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief McKee. Ms. Lupton, Village Administrator?
Yes, thank you. Tonight's agenda includes the acceptance of the 79 acres for the B2 property for potential future Madison Meadows development. This annexation was previously approved by council. It went to the Madison County Board of Commissioners for their approval. Now the step is that we have to formally accept it into the village. After the acceptance is complete, the Board of Elections, Secretary of State, and County Auditors will be notified of the annexation, and it will be finalized. Tonight's agenda also includes a new CRA request. This motion is just to send it to the Board of Education to start the process. Council will have future opportunities to vote on the approval of the CRA. You'll see the business owners are putting a sizable investment into the building. The contract for the Uptown Design Plan is being reviewed by staff. We hope to have a start date on that project in February. And other than that, we're just continuing normal seasonal operations. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lupton. Council President, Mr. Terry?
We'll have a work session in February.
We're not gonna have one tomorrow or this Wednesday.
I do not believe we need to have one this Wednesday. I believe this was gonna be a supersized meeting. It's kind of based on everyone's thoughts, unless anyone feels strongly against not having a Wednesday.
No. What I was gonna suggest, I was gonna wait until the council goals thing came up, but last year, we had dedicated one entire work session to council goals. So if you needed a good reason to have a work session next Wednesday, I think that's this Wednesday, that would be it. So I just wanted to offer that. So.
It's not a terrible idea. At this short of notice, I'm hesitant to schedule anything 2 days out. However, having an additional meeting to go over council goals, we can talk about it in discussion. But for now, I'm not going to have to schedule a meeting on Wednesday. And that's all I have to report. And we'll have our normal meeting on the first Wednesday of February.
I won't be here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You'll be missed. You'll be missed.
Does anybody else think we should have a work session on goals, council goals, or sooner rather than later? Or are you guys okay with just getting to it when we?
I guess we'll see when it comes up in discussion.
Discussion. I wasn't saying not to have it. I was saying
we can always change our mind. I'm always okay with not having more meetings.
All right, thank you, Mr. Terry. Mr. Lafayette?
I have no report at this time.
Thank you. Administrator Search Committee. Before you, we're meeting this Thursday with our consultant that we have chosen, Management Partners. Chief McKee, would you like to talk about, Ms. Ferguson, about your experience?
Well, I thought we had talked about it when we got to the discussion.
Okay.
Administrators for the contract.
Okay.
I mean, it's up to you, I mean, I don't mind talking, but.
We'll skip that part, and, so we have a meeting on Thursday at noon, so I'll wait till the draft contract for the contract, excuse me.
Mayor, do you have, how far has the committee gotten in its efforts to find?
We are ready to meet with the consulting firm, so that's what I'm gonna, when we get down to discussion items.
All right.
But yeah, they've been working diligently to keep it on track. BZA.
So you will have a meeting this month.
Yeah.
It will be on the third Tuesday. I believe there is one item, and Ms. Burrow will forward the information, but there is one item on for BZA on the third Tuesday. And there was no meeting in December to report on. You get it next time.
We will get you up to speed on the items. Planning and zoning, we did meet in December, and this is on the 15th, and we had a really good discussion on what's our directions for housing developments coming in, because I think that it really does need to start with council having that discussion, because planning and zoning, we've been having discussions on our expectations, and we have to give our own direction to staff to be able to share with the developers, so that we have that conversation when they come to meet with staff and go over their development, so that Ms. Brill can relay, yes, this is what we are looking for, no, it's not, because right now the developers are saying, you know, yes, you want the smaller lots, less yard, and we're actually finding in trends, one of our P&Z committee members did share some information where those trends are starting to change, where home buyers are wanting the larger lots. So we need that direction a little bit from council as well as we come with our standards, so that we're starting to tell the developers we want the higher standards in building materials, and you know, this is what we expect out of our neighborhoods from the point on. So
Will the development standards come out at all of the zoning code rewrite?
yes, so that is, there's an area to be able to go back through the standards.
I think we talked about how the zoning code rewrite will come to council for review and approval. I think as part of that, adding a development standards or expectations, again, we can always lean back on a comprehensive plan. I think there's a lot of great stuff in there. I think this is a great area. We just piggyback. If I remember from Ms. Brill, it was going to be late January, February timeframe that they were going to bring that to us anyways. So by the time we had an opportunity to really put our ducks in a row, it'd probably be in front of us. So for me, I think we take that and maybe we carve out a decent size of a work session to talk through the zoning code rewrite and our development standards that we are looking for, and we can kind of set that back. So if everyone, I think that's a great place to kind of bring those together. Maybe, I don't know if February's gonna have a lot to see, but do we know when the zoning code rewrite is? Because I know it's going to planning and zoning.
Yeah, I know the final draft was happening around the end of the year. They were getting some comments from the committee. I think they have a meeting this week, so we should have another update. I'll provide that later in the week.
Yeah, so planning and zoning will be the 19th. So do you think it'll go to planning and zoning on the 19th?
I wouldn't think so. I would
Okay,
think
so it'll
probably
be the
next
following
month.
month? Okay.
Yeah, I'll confirm that though.
Because we have another steering committee meeting on January 25th for the zoning code rewrite. So we are to have our comments, the steering committee is to have their comments made this week on it. So then that way they can then wrap it up into the 25th with the steering committee.
Okay.
But that's been some of the discussions that we have been having with the planning and zoning, saying that, you know, this is what we're expecting with green space, and if they have a park in the proposal, who's responsible for the park. And it was a good discussion back in December, so looking to keep building on that.
Yeah, and just as a point or a suggestion, if you're gonna have when you have a work session to cover those items, because that is important, so there isn't any miscommunication with folks that are coming in. But council members probably should take a look at the comprehensive plan and bring that with you to the meeting too, because that's also another part of it, because you have the zoning code and comprehensive plan, those are things that the developers look at.
And is it time too, because where it's been 2018 was when the comprehensive plan, like how often are we supposed to kind of revisit that portion?
5 to 10 years.
5 to 10 years, okay.
Revisit, I would say yearly, rewrite everything.
Right,
We should
right.
revisit and reread it like every year. I think, again, as to Mr. Reed's point of the council goals meeting, I think reading the comprehensive plan, reading last year's goals going into that might be helpful, just so that, we kind of see what, at least in 2018, we thought the direction of the village would be.
Parks and Recreation Committee, which they meet
I think it's
these
shared.
We have a meeting tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I think Ms. Granger was hoping to get the the 2022 events wrapped up here. I think she was working on Music in the Park, Mr. Reed, with you to finalize some of the performers.
Yeah, if you want to report on the music in the park, I have firsthand knowledge for you. We've extended the music in the park into the entire month of September. We're not going to actively pursue people for the last 2 weekends of September, since it tends to get dark really early. We have 3 empty spots, which have kind of been reserved, more or less, and we've been kind of guiding people around those 3 things in the middle, end of July, and the first week of August. So other than those 3 spots, we're completely booked for that. But we have 3 groups that are not assigned yet, so we're going to sort that out and get that full program for the people. Interestingly, I'll just throw this in. If any people who are familiar with London and the barbershop quartet that performs down there, they performed at Christmas on the streets down there. They're coming to Music in the Park the 2nd, June the 5th. So if you like barbershop music, then you don't want to miss it. I can get you some free tickets if you're interested, so just check with me.
Thank you. That's exciting to know and be planning for warmer weather and warmer days. Personnel and Finance, which they meet the last
Well, they have,
Wednesday.
I know, maybe Carrie doesn't, that they're not having a meeting until the end of January, so they've taken 3 months off. So they should have a fairly good agenda going.
26th. Is that the same as the one we were about to say?
Okay.
You're about to tell me when the DRB meeting?
The DRB is, do they meet on the same night?
Last
Yes.
Wednesday.
So is there a time that we should almost move it?
I think that if I were still on the committee, I would be asking the committee to move it off of the DRB date. Because it always gets in the way of something. But, so Carrie, for what it's worth, I would take that request to Justin Brammer, who's the current chair of the Finance Committee.
Thank you.
And then Fire Board will be James.
You have, your first meeting at,
Our first meeting is at,
Thursday
it's at Thursday,
at 6:30 at the fire station.
6:30 at the fire station.
Thank you. And then Design Review Board.
We do not have a meeting scheduled, we have a meeting scheduled for the final Wednesday, always the final Wednesday of the month, 6:30 here. I have not heard of any applications, however, looking at the activity at the old village offices, I'm guessing that there's a pretty good chance we'll be getting some applications
Yeah.
either this month or next, so. Stay tuned.
All right, thank you. Moving out of reports into old business. Motion
to
So-
go to.
yes, we're going
Motion to go to executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G2 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes.
Second.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Udaly?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Mr. Terry?
Yes,
and we will be right
We'll be
back.
right back.
obviously, Kaylee, Paul, or,
Yes,
I think he normally,
all staff and.
all staff and
council.
Mr. Reed, you seconded, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll make sure we're.
So fast.
Yeah.
Hey, do I turn this off?
No, you can leave it on there.
Hey, guys. Hey, Chief. You got a card? No, I didn't bring my phone. I'll run and get one real quick. That's why I think you're.
My name's Neil Burbrick, just came to introduce myself, my boss bought the Jim's Diner.
Oh, did you?
So we're gonna be turning to a cigar shop.
You want to start on what?
Cigar.
I'll see. Okay. I was wondering what they're gonna do there. Kind of miss the hamburgers though.
I heard,
Yeah.
but being in that building, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's like going to the Waffle House, so you just don't look.
So,
How you doing? Pretty good. Good. How you doing? Good.
Where you going?
I gotta go get my card, but here's my card if you need it.
That's helpful.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna put it
You notice I quit typing?
Yes. I used to send it to Haley,
That's wonderful.
so I didn't wanna go in there, there's too many people.
Tyler, how's your dad?
Oh, they're good.
Yeah, are they tripping again right now?
They're in Florida.
Your mom puts those beach pictures up, I just love her.
Yeah, try waking up every day, don't you?
Oh. I'm so jealous. I've got another month before I get to see water again, and I'm so ready.
Did you wanna introduce yourself to council?
Well, I was just gonna
Is
keep
it-
it, I figured afterwards, I just wanted.
Here's my card in case you need something, or you can sell it on eBay if you don't want it, so.
I do have one question, because we won't be selling alcohol or serving, but we have a location in Powell. And the guys bring their own bottles in and drink, but we ran it through Powell, and I wanted to do the same with you to make sure there are any issues or anything like that.
With getting the liquor from it?
No. We're just a cigar shop, but our customers will bring a bottle of bourbon or whatever, sit and drink bourbon, watch the game.
Yeah, there probably could be an issue with that,
Okay.
because that's Union County, so we'd have to be careful with that, because Madison County kind of gives, they don't care as much as what Union County does, so we just have to check in on that, so I mean, it's not probably a big issue.
Well, it's not like, guys are.
You're not selling.
We're not selling, we're not serving, guys aren't coming there to get drunk, they're smoking a cigar and having a right watch
Yeah, I'm
football.
sure Tyler will be up there.
You're not selling alcohol?
As long as you put something green on it, so.
I'll stay home.
But you can bring your own.
I'll stay home.
Yeah, she'll be.
I'm safer that way.
And she likes a big stogie.
No, I know, no, I just smoked a long time ago, Dale. We see each other. I just like my skills way too much.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's too far to drive, even though it's a straight shot.
Yeah. I like to roll my own, is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Jim's dying, man. I bet you guys had to scrape about 200 degrees off the walls there.
So,
We're just gonna,
what's that?
I said, Jim, I bet you had to scrape about 2 inches of grease off the wall there.
Yeah, but eating there, that's the only reason I haven't got COVID.
Yeah.
So, I think it was everything. So,
Body contains.
yeah, it's gonna be a little bit of work, but it'll be nice when we get done.
Jim's dying.
We have
Yeah,
pretty
he
good
passed
following.
away, so they closed it a
House,
couple,
so
4 or 5 months
get
how long,
us-
how long you been in town?
6 years.
I heard that.
Started
He
7.
went up for auction.
He gets a lot of people, you know, not to name drop, but, you know, Coach Hartline, Tony McGrath is the running back coach for Ohio State. He was there the other night.
Do you own the place right there on the main strip?
Yeah, right next to local.
That is such a cool looking place.
Thank you. That's
When are you
fine.
guys gonna start on this one?
Well, he met with zoning and, the fire marshal today. So we're hoping to be open in March.
Okay.
And then eventually, probably later this summer, we'll put a big patio out back, so.
Are you remodeling it now? Is what you-
No, not yet, we haven't started yet. We wanna get everything squared away, but
So you're not gonna do the paneling?
We'll pray for you during that job.
yeah, the electrical is gonna take a lot of work.
Yeah.
A
The
lot.
fire department's right across the street. They-
Maybe
Yeah,
that's why
well,
this-
that's one of the first things I noticed, I'm like, this will work.
That's why you always, when you see it as is. it's
Yeah.
always
Oh, yeah,
nice.
well, we know, it was a great deal, and it's a good spot, you know. All
You know what,
roads
he
lead
stayed
there.
there for 40-some years, so most businesses don't last that long.
Yeah. But,
Especially
good
selling
bones to it.
cheeseburgers and french fries.
That'll work. So it's good to meet you, Chief.
You could, if you guys just call me.
We're almost over. You don't need to realize.
No, we don't.
Haley wrote down the executive
It's
session.
gonna get locked in there.
What's that?
It's gonna get locked in
No, you didn't.
Yeah, we just can't get in
Is there a motion to,
Motion to authorize the village administrator to enter into a contract for real property at 223 Jackson Street for the amount to not exceed $130,000.
Second.
Who second? Thank you.
I'll be loud next time.
It's hard to hear with all this. Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Congratulations, we bought a house.
moving out old business into new business, a motion certifying one CRA application to the Jonathan Alders Local School District Board of Education for the properties located at 101 South Chillicothe Street pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 3735.671A1.
Point of order, Madam Chair. This motion requires an agreement. And I don't see an agreement in the packet. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
It's a proposed agreement.
No, that's not an agreement. That's what was used last year by Mr. Cahal as an application.
I have it and I can print it for everyone.
You have
yeah,
an
everyone
agreement
is-
form?
Yeah, I believe
Well, I'd
so.
like a chance to review it, if you don't mind. So printing it's not gonna help me.
Okay.
So I'm suggesting we postpone this till the next meeting, the approval of it, to give council members a chance to see the agreement. Because that's what has to be certified to the school board.
For clarification purposes, this is just, we're sending it to the school board, it will go to the school board, it will come back to us, that we will then have
That's
an
correct.
opportunity to vote or not vote on this, so
I'll
this
make
is.
the motion.
Yeah, that's what's that.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
What's the motion?
The motion as written here.
Well, that's out of order, Mr. Rucker, because we don't have an agreement. It
Well, this
requires
is a
an
CRA.
agreement. You can't certify an application to the school board. You have to certify an agreement.
This is where I look at my lawyer and wonder why he's
No,
in the
don't
other
go out of the room.
We need 1 second here.
Yes, the ORC does say certified copy of the agreement, so we could print it tonight or we can postpone it.
All right, so, Mr. Lafayette, and
Yes,
sorry to put you on the spot here, but,
Sorry?
so, under new business, there is a motion to certify one CRA application, to the local school district. And there has been a question on the only item that can actually be certified as an agreement. And if what has been presented to us represents an agreement. Mr. I don't know if that fairly represents what your question is. You can feel free to add.
There's not an agreement that council has before it to certify. The application can't be certified to the school board. It requires an agreement. That's the language in the ordinance. So absent an agreement, we can't certify anything. And so Ms. Lupton has stated she has a copy on her computer.
Yeah, I just don't.
I think it's appropriate that I have time to review that agreement before we vote on it. So the options are two. She prints it out, presents it to the council. They can certify it without reading it if they want. But I prefer to postpone it till the next meetings, give them a chance to review it, and we can certify it at that time.
Well, so number one, yes, you have to reapprove agreements. Number two, it's your prerogative. If you can read through it and you're comfortable with it, that's up to you. I mean, that really is, there's nothing really legal about it other than the fact that if you're comfortable with it, I mean, I would say one thing, if this was, let me give some cover for people to, this is not a unique agreement to the extent that it's not like some contract that fell out of the sky. We've seen CRA agreements before, so you know what to look for. However, that being said, it is still, it's up to you, incumbent on you to be comfortable with what you're reviewing, that you feel comfortable reviewing it and approving it, if you want to or if you don't want to. If you want to postpone it.
I'll also note, if we do it at the next council meeting, it's still time to make it to the next
Right.
BOE meeting.
That was gonna be my next question.
Yeah.
As far as
So they're not starting this until summer,
Well,
according to what's on the application.
Correct. They just have to go through the
So
process.
there's plenty of time to get it done, there's no rush for it. And the other significant thing that makes this slightly different is the code was changed by the Ohio legislature on September 30th. So this is a different agreement than, because the requirements are different than we've had before us before. That's why it's important to take a look at this first effort under the new law. That's my opinion.
From a legal standpoint, as long as we have enough time and we still have the time remaining in order to get it submitted for you guys to vote on it, get it submitted to the school board and have it come back, that's fine.
Yeah, I think personally, assuming the application and the agreement are aligned, I'm very comfortable with the application. To Mr. Reed's point, if it doesn't delay us, I'm very comfortable with tabling this to our next meeting. Again, I'm very comfortable with the application as it stands, but if it's not an agreement, I'm very comfortable with tabling this motion. I don't know if you motion to table a motion.
Or
I can make a
withdraw. I think I
motion.
can just withdraw the motion.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay, motion is withdrawn, and this will go on to end of January.
Yep.
First reading resolution 01-2022, a resolution authorizing the trade-in of village property. First reading resolution 02-2022, a resolution authorizing the village administrator to dispose of village property no longer needed for public use. First reading ordinance 01-2022, an ordinance accepting the annexation petition with the Board of County Commissioners of Madison County, Ohio for annexation to the Village of Plain City, Ohio of certain territory as provided by Ohio Revised Code section 709.022. And a motion scheduling of the public hearing for the preliminary development plan for Madison Meadows 2 on February 14th, 2022. Is there a motion to set the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Udaly?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Mr. Terry?
Yes, but if my wife asked me, I'd protested it being on Valentine's Day.
And moving out of new business into discussion items, Administrator Search Committee contract update for Fern. And I will turn this over to Chief McKee and Ms. Ferguson for your discussion on the consulting firm that the committee.
I mean, I don't care. I mean, you can update or I can. I don't care. Go ahead.
So as you know, there was 3 consulting companies that we looked at. We ended up going with Management Partners. That was actually the company that brought Nathan in at that time, that it was more of a, we needed somebody at that time, so they knew Nathan, so they brought Nathan in. They never expected him actually to get a full-time job. He needed a full-time job. So the guy that we're, and it's actually the same guy, his name's Greg Horn. This whole packet here is my research on the company. So I did some research on the company stuff. I checked the references. They all came back great. So the committee all agreed that this will be the firm that we go with out of the 3. It's more local than any of the other ones. We have a contract. I let Paul look at the contract or the proposal. He's good with it. It has their fee in there.
So do we need to have like a bid and acceptance, or is this like
Professional services.
professional services okay for you guys just engage in?
Right.
I mean, I think having some of that documentation, maybe just an overview of the company provided to the council would be helpful, so we can know a little bit about it, but we've empowered this committee to select. I thought if it's professional services, I'm pretty comfortable with continuing. I mean, I don't know anything about this company, so it'd be nice to have some information, if you guys could provide maybe through Ms. Lupton onto the Dropbox, just something about, you know, who you guys have selected, and, but I'm guessing you guys' meetings are open, right? So
Yes.
if we wanted to go and engage, we could go.
As the mayor said, we actually have a meeting scheduled with them this Thursday.
Okay, cool.
But with that, we have to have the proposal signed either by the mayor or by the president of council on the proposal before them, so I can send it back to the company. He actually took his time to drive down here for an hour, 15 minutes, and meet with myself and Ms. Ferguson instead of doing on the Zoom call. So he's actually driving here Wednesday too, or Thursday to meet us.
Great. All right. I'm sure one of us need help.
What's that?
You need a motion tonight to authorize.
So we do need a motion, so what is the motion we need?
Motion to authorize either you or the mayor to engage the professional services agreement with Management Partners.
So moved.
Yeah, so I think we gotta pick one. You're on the committee here,
Yes,
so maybe just for segregation of duties,
you can sign.
I need to complete that motion.
Oh, who? You. So moved. Michael Terry represents the motion.
Second.
So what role does the administrator play in this contract? I mean,
I don't have any role.
She's gonna pay the bill.
No,
She's.
I mean, doesn't she have to sign all the contracts that are executed with the village?
For the professional services agreement, technically, I think you're correct, as far as the administrator is the one that engages, that signs off on the contracts.
Give me a sec.
Yeah, did you?
They address your council members on it.
Yeah, so they,
Because they're the ones going to be actually making the election. Contract almost, so it doesn't matter.
this would be another situation where you have council, who in this circumstance, would authorize Haley to enter into contract on behalf of the village to engage in professional services of Management Partners.
Even better. Motion to authorize Haley to engage in professional services contract with that individual.
Second.
Who seconded, please?
Mr. Reed?
Thank you. Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Udell?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Sins?
Yes.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Thank you.
If you'd like, Mr. Terry, still forward this to.
I think it'd be good for all of us just to have some background information. Yeah. Thank you.
Draft contract for solicitor. Ms. Lupton?
Yeah, it's time to review our contract with the solicitor. Paul sent over our draft contract. It's pretty much the same terms, if I'm correct, Paul. Slight increase in rate, but nothing substantial or out of budget. Is council okay with moving forward for another 2 years? Would you like to set a time frame?
So with
I'd like
this,
to see
the professional services, is it very similar where we would authorize you to engage?
Yeah, it's the administrator.
Very same, yes.
Yep.
I'd like to see the contract.
Okay.
And just so everybody knows, it's really an engagement agreement. The only thing, and again, because it's a professional service, I work at your pleasure. You can fire me anytime you want, that's your prerogative. So all it does is just kind of set forth the rates and general obligations that I have to the council as the law director. But there's no bind. The only reason that there's a term in there is because that's what I'm suggesting. For 2 years, those rates won't change. That's all it is. Other than that, you guys can fire me anytime you want.
Yeah, and personally, you know, with our continuity of government, we already have an acting city manager. I have no desire to change our solicitor, and I would, you know, like to, if we can get to an agreement, and I'm happy to see it. I think that for right now is not the time to, you know, consider anything for me personally. We already have, like I said, an opening in our city manager. I wouldn't want any other open positions right now. So happy to review it, but I'm also happy to have Ms. Lupton engage, unless you guys see any other.
Mr. Terry, my preference, strong preference, is that we do diligence on this, which at this contract transition time, we do what we should do, and that is review the contract, have an executive session, discuss the terms and perhaps performance over the past period of time to ask and answer all of those questions that might come up. So, you know, it's not a big deal. It's not going to constrain anyone in terms of delaying anything.
When does the contract expire, or is it evergreen at the end of it?
It's, again, each year you guys, you have to identify who your law director is. So, I mean, again, the terms of the engagement are literally the terms of when I said, this is what my rates are gonna be for the next 2 years. And that term is now, those 2 years are up, so now you get a new one with new rates. And so for the time being, I would probably recommend reappointing me, but I'm not gonna change those rates at this moment until you guys consider the new one. Then you can, if you look at the new rate, you know, just so that you have an appointed law director statutorily and within our charter, there is somebody that's been appointed for fiscal year 22. But that doesn't mean that at the next meeting, you find somebody else and you say, we want somebody else, and you hire that person.
Yeah, and I believe per the charter, correct me if I'm wrong, the solicitor is a council reporting position. You report to the council, not the administrator, mayor.
No, administrator.
Administrator, okay. So
This
who
is upon
appoints?
the
The council
recommendation.
appoints?
Administrator makes the appointment with council's approval.
Okay, I'm just looking for the part where it says this is an annual event. That we have to do it every year, and I'm not finding it in the charter. That once you're engaged, you stay engaged until you're not engaged.
Yeah.
So
Engagement
that means
letter.
we don't have to do it every year.
Yeah, the
Yeah, his
engagement,
last engagement letter was 2 years ago.
yeah, so that's the only thing, my
It
engagement.
doesn't matter. It doesn't have a termination on it, I don't think. It has contract terms, but I'm not sure when those expire.
Yeah, but his agreement with us has a date on it.
Right.
For, the pricing,
For
So-
what date?
for 2 years. So his 2-year
So when
agreement,
is it, what's the date that it expires? Is it before this year? Is it already expired? Expire next week?
Probably 2 years from the last agreement. You
Right,
said
that's-
it's signed
Well,
2 years ago.
yeah, we should know what that is. So I'm saying it might have been, you know, we still could have 4 months left on that contract.
no, in
We
the,
don't know the date.
September of last year.
So
It's
we
already
haven't had,
expired.
we haven't had one for like 3 months,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, I would just, my preference is not to do that until we have the contract review and the discussion.
It's not a contract, it's a letter of engagement.
Well, whatever. Some of the administration has to sign it, Paul has to sign it. Kind of makes it a contract, but if you don't want to think of it as a contract, don't think of it as a contract. So, you know, council can do, that's just my preference. Council can do what it wants. I just think it's due diligence time for this. With all of our paid positions, when they come up, especially contract personnel, should just be policy.
So putting this on the January 24th meeting,
Well, hold on, because I want to make sure that I'm following what's happening here. So,
Or we can just go ahead and do it now.
yeah, I'm very happy that we should have a review, we can do an annual review after an engagement. Per the engagement terms, we can let Mr. Lafayette go or end our engagement. I think that to Mr. Reed's point, seeing that engagement letter before we do too much is prudent, but also regardless, I really don't see any reason that I'm really against, from a continuity of government standpoint, any sort of change in the short term. So could we authorize Ms. Lupton to start an engagement, or are you already there? You're already at that point?
We have a draft engagement, but nothing beyond that.
So all we would do, our choices are to do nothing, you provide that to us, and we talk about it on the 24th. Or the second option would be, we just authorize you to go into it and sign it now. I think Mr. Reed's point, if we're in a situation that's not super urgent, us seeing it and bringing it back on the 24th is probably prudent, as long as Mr. Lafayette is comfortable with that.
I have no problem with that.
As long as Mr. Lafayette has no problem with that. He's not been engaged since September, he's our law director, so by default, he's still our law director unless we terminate that, so. There's not a motion here anyways for us to withdraw, so. So I guess Haley, could you provide us that for the next meeting?
Yep.
thank you. And then we put 2022 council goals on discussion. I know we have taken an entire work session before, as well as we've also come in on a Saturday, different times. So each council's kind of done a different approach to it. The Saturday morning with staff is not a bad idea. I know everybody's time is very valuable, including staff's. They put in a lot of late nights, but fresh sets of eyes and in the earlier morning, that's an option. What is everybody's thoughts on this?
So to Mr. Reed's point of a second work session, since we didn't really have one in January, looking at the calendar, reasonably the only dates, that's why I was trying to ask for all those dates and everything, are really like the 20th, which is a Thursday. I don't believe there's a standing meeting that evening, and the 27th. Those are quite a few consecutive nights for a few people. I guess for me, what do we have in February other than the council goals? I know there's a few other items that we've delayed. Is the February work session already full?
Hold on one second.
Mr. Rucker's point, if we could extend as opposed to bring everyone back, especially staff, I think that's preferable, but this is probably a half hour to an hour conversation.
Yeah, it's nothing urgent. I have campground rates a program we're gonna participate in today in February, but both of those things can be moved up or back.
I certainly think we should have council goals. I think it helped us last year, at least kick off. I don't think we came back to it enough. But I think it helped kind of organize our thoughts and direction. I know we want to talk about a new committee, potentially a communication committee. So what are you guys' thoughts? I'm okay with it.
Just for your information, Mr. Chair, because you weren't here, these are the minutes from last year's work session meeting. The meeting started
I
at
was there.
5:30, it did not end until 7:30. And the only thing we did was discuss goals. So things can get out of control, especially if you like to talk. So
I have a stronger iron fist than my predecessor.
I'm okay with what council decides to do for council goals. It's just gonna be an extended discussion.
Give me that cap. So what do you guys think, Ms. Ferguson? Ms. Sins?
I like the idea of doing, you're thinking the Thursday evening?
Looking at the calendar, I'm just looking at the calendar. There was stuff everywhere except for the 20th and 27th. Or Saturday could be, but that gets rough.
I mean, what about February 2nd?
Night now.
I'm sorry, what?
What about
Even
February?
my beer drinking night now, Thursday.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Sorry,
February
Mr.
2nd.
Rucker.
February 2nd.
February 2nd, I mean, like, because really, we only have, like, talking about the communications committee, which is, it falls in line with goals and everything.
20th or when?
So what they're talking about though, is just having on the second, Mr. Reed pointed out, it could be a long one, but again, I think sometimes a long one is preferable to two. And what we could always do is, we could always start February's meeting, you know, kind of mentally set a hard stop in our heads, or even vocally say it. And then if we are still running, we can schedule another one in February to pick it up. I think there's, like, from what I'm hearing, like 4 items.
Yeah,
Some
no,
of them are
I
quicker.
will not be here for the February regular work session.
That's the February 2nd, right? That's the
Would
first
you
one.
like us
It's,
to?
I'm putting that information out there, so.
Mr. Rucker, would you like to have a Thursday meeting on the 20th or
I can
27th?
do the 20th or the 27th, or you can do it on the 2nd. It's nothing, neither one of not one of those choices is gonna break my heart.
Ms. Ferguson?
Either date's good.
I have no strong opinion on either of them.
I'm on the 27th.
Reed?
I'm okay.
27 doesn't work.
She said 27.
20th it is, so tentatively a council goals only work session, no other items, except for if we end up in a weird situation where we have to vote on something really quick at the beginning of the meeting, will be on the 20th. Ms. Lupton, it would be.
6:30?
6:30, council chambers. It would be preferable if some of the staff could be here. I don't know if everyone has to, but, you know, a couple members. Thank you. And then maybe the second will be quick. That's how we can hope it. So the 20th it is.
I won't miss much.
Can we get last year's goals?
Yes.
Yeah, the previous president, I'm sure, has them.
I'll put that in the packet for you.
Thank you.
We were still virtual last year.
It was virtual. I wasn't there.
Okay, and the last discussion item is Village of Plain City Grant Program. Mr. Reed, this was your item.
Yes, I asked for this to be a discussion item here, because it was touring the website, Plain City website, looking for something else, and I kind of stumbled on this link to this grant program, which I had no knowledge of. So first, before I get into discussion, I kind of like to ask the administrator, because she would be the one that would know, I think, the answer to these questions, is a little background on this program, how it came into existence, and how it got on the website.
Yeah, last summer we received several requests from local organizations for grant funding, basically, for local events, in-kind support of events, labor costs forgiven for events. I think council had received so many requests last summer that the request was made that we need to formalize the request and how we accept those requests and approve or deny the requests. So staff put together a just a light application. I believe it was talked about in the October work session. We brought it up on the TV, just had the framework around it. Council at that time approved the idea of $10,000 for this program, and then it was put into the budget for the year.
Okay, so you pretty much directed it to be a link on the website then?
Yeah,
Okay.
we haven't publicized it or anything yet this year, but.
Okay, I'll just make a brief statement on this. I certainly do recall all of that discussion because it was my suggestion that the village engage with the community and support worthwhile activities. There wasn't a discussion of this type of program at that time. The big hiccup with council doing this was the requirement to have a policy for giving funds basically to organizations and entities in the community, which we did not have and we still do not have. So whatever happens to this grant program is we need the policy before we can do anything like that, is my perception of it, because there's other money, and there's a few errors in the presentation, the way it is on the website. First of all, there's $20,000 in the fund, not $10,000. Nathan slipped that in there, but prior to the last appropriation, and didn't really make it very well known. The other thing that happened was there's something in a marketing category in the general fund that was called marketing materials. We had a big discussion, or I did, with Nathan about that, how that fund money was being used. And unbeknownst to me, he changed the name of that. It was called marketing materials, and he changed it to marketing materials and community support to enable or restrict criticism of how those funds were being used, because they were not appropriate for what they were being used for. So now there's actually $25,000 available for community support. And before we get into how that money is going to be used, from my perspective, we need that policy done. As for who's eligible for the money, for what purposes do we think in general that we should provide funds to community entities. And I'm using the word entities because my original idea was this: there wouldn't be any restrictions on who could be granted the money. And then also part of the original concept was that this would more than likely be initiated by council members, that you would hear of or find out about a need in the community. And just as an example, the food pantry desperately in the uptown area needed a paint job on the front. That would have been to the benefit of the village to have that done and have it look nicer than what it looked like for the uptown area. So they needed $1,300. Council declined to give them that money for getting that paint job, okay? For various reasons, and the solicitor contributed that before you do something like that, you need to have a policy so that you're just not selecting who you want to, that it's available to everyone. So that's where I'm going with the policy deal. We need to get that policy before we ever activate or grant any money to nonprofits or other entities in the village.
I'm confused.
Okay.
You just said that you brought this policy.
No, I didn't bring the policy, I brought the idea.
You brought the idea for anybody to get this money, but
Yes.
then you just stated 2 seconds ago to only people that are tax exempt. Which one is it?
No, I didn't say that. I did not mean to, if I said it, I did not mean to say it. Nonprofits are one of the things in the grant program. It restricts the grant program, which I object to this in the grant program, is that it restricts it to nonprofits and other things. I think council's, one of the big things with this kind of program is to be able to leverage private money to get things done in the village that benefit the village, benefit our goals for rehabbing, if you will, the uptown area, for example, or other places in the village. So that was my original intention for approaching a grant, community support money, if you will. So I would make it available to anyone who council decides they want to give it to, and not limited by a dollar amount, but limited by the benefit and the available funds for it. So the initial, I guess the question that needs to be answered is, are we going to have a policy for granting community support money to entities in the village for the purpose of leveraging and obtaining improvement in our community? So if we can answer that question first, then that would be a good thing. It's a discussion, it's not a motion, okay? So I'd like to solicit, because there's 3 new people.
It seems reasonable to
on
me
the-
that we have a policy that would allow us to understand what people, to divvy out how money, and that seems reasonable. I think I understand what you're saying. We're saying that about other things, about putting signs up, so that we need a policy to govern, that just,
Right. This,
not someone's opinion,
Is that on the website?
or,
Yeah, they said it's on the website. I couldn't find it, but I think Mr. Reed said it
it's on the front
I'm
page.
looking at a document that has a criteria, has priorities and everything written on there, exactly what you're asking for.
Well, it's a little different than what I'm asking for, because they eliminate commercial businesses in the grant program. I don't think that's appropriate if we're gonna get the full benefit of being able to leverage, these funds that we're giving out. That nobody has more money to leverage than the commercial businesses, and the commercial businesses line our streets and our commercial areas. So those are the very people that we wanna leverage. If they're, for example, if we get our uptown rehab plan from our consultant, we paid $38,000 for, and he suggests a certain kind of thing needs to be done, and village doesn't want to put all the money into it, we could use this grant money to leverage private money to get those things done. That's the whole idea behind it. So do we want to have that policy? If we don't have the policy, then I'll just shut up and let the solicitor talk about the policy, because it was he that brought that requirement to our attention.
Let's be very clear about how this went through. You've alluded to multiple things that are kind of convoluted here.
Yeah.
The CARES Act dollars that came to us needed to be very discreetly, for auditor purposes, allocated to where we believe we could do that. At the time, we only had a short amount of time to allocate those resources. We did not necessarily turn down the food pantry.
That wasn't the CARES Act.
What we did was, we said that we do not have a merit-based system to evaluate the needs of our citizens and our nonprofits at this time. In lieu of that merit-based, I don't know if one individual needs it more than the other. I don't have a process to determine that. I am not comfortable as a entity to give out money to that person and not that person. That is how the food pantry money did not get allocated. We are all very big supporters of the food pantry, and we will continue to be. This grant process came about because there was a question of, will the city council engage in supporting things like the farmers market or Rock the Clock, and how can we as a village support things that bring in money to our organization? And we said, well, it's kind of hard, ad hoc. We were asked 2 weeks before, do we want to support something? And we all agreed, of course we want to support something, but how do I know if I don't want to support that or this? How do I determine without some sort of application process that's going through here? I believe what the administration had tried to attempt to do here is create guidelines that say, hey, if you come to me and ask for money, I'm going to send you to this application process that is posted on our website for everyone to apply for, that then I will distribute to council and I'll let them determine if they want to do this. Could we refresh, could we update, could we clean up this wording? Certainly, but I don't think there's some sort of nefarious activity going on with this process. I believe that it is, to Mr. Sense's point, a good policy to have a policy with an application and everything. And if there are parts of this that we want to clean up, just like we clean up ordinances and resolutions, this is just a first go at it. Of course we can. We're going to have places like Rock the Clock, the farmer's market, and other people come to us and say, hey, can you provide police service? Can you provide this or that? And having a process that we follow to determine that is probably a good idea. So, saying all of that, I'm pretty comfortable with this. I think one thing I would put the dollar amount limit on here just because for forgiveness, I don't know how much overtime on police is, but we probably exceeded this last year. But side note, we probably exceeded this. And I think that having a process and approach. Now, if Mr. Reed, if there are specific points to this, like you would like it to be open to all businesses and not just nonprofit, that can be something we debate. But I believe at the time we empowered the administration to draft us something to have, and this is what they came up with.
We did not. The discussion ended with the policy, and then the discussion moved to the Personnel Finance Committee. And between the committee members and the administrator, we agreed to allocate money. And council was on board with us, an amount of money for this fund, which would be restricted. And everything that gets approved and paid out of that fund has to be approved by council.
And I believe that here it does say that.
Well, that's, right, okay, fine.
Council approval is needed for grant award.
For this grant program, I look at this grant program as a subset of the overall effort to get money into the community. This is not the whole thing. If this is the whole thing, the Rock the Clock people are not gonna be happy with $1,000, okay? So the reason I wanted to review it is to convince council we need to review it and write the grant program ourselves. And write the policy for it. So that's the whole purpose of having this discussion. So if you agree you want the program, and let me ask the solicitor, he's still of the mind that we need a policy for this kind of effort.
Yeah, going back and unpackaging this a little bit, the discussions that first arose regarding grants and having a system did indeed originate with CARES Act funding, where we had essentially, we had an allocation more than what was necessary to satisfy what we needed to address the coronavirus with regard to safety and other issues that we had. So we had additional funds. We ultimately, I believe, donated those funds to the fire district because the fire district did not receive CARES Act funds because they were not eligible to receive it. At the time when we had the discussion, we were having the discussion September, October of that year, and we were coming to the end of the year, we had to have determination on how to expend that money. And I think I referenced back, I believe Reynoldsburg was the city that had, at one point, I want to say in July, they had identified that they had $1 million excess from the CARES Act funding. And they had gone through and established a policy and grant program scoring system on how to distribute those funds. I think the problem we had, not that there was a problem with it, with the ideal of it or the idea of it, it was just that there was no way that we were going to institute and promulgate some kind of a policy and a scoring system and oversight and dedicated administrative employees to evaluate and have the appropriate oversight inside of 2 months in order to expend money. So to the point of having a policy, absolutely. Whenever you have an expenditure of public funds, the policies are always best. when we are dealing with nonprofits, and I think we're talking about some of the other expenditures that we've had in-kind contributions, things like that, it's been to nonprofits, but I believe that it was in the context of, marketing and things of that nature, where I think you brought up the marketing funds. So yeah, there's, anytime you have expenditure of public funds, you're gonna wanna have some kind of an appropriate, if you're gonna have a grant program, and we do have it here, and we do have criteria in here, there's nothing wrong with tightening it up or having a scoring system or however you guys wanna do it, but having something that the auditor is gonna be comfortable with, at the end of the day, so that it doesn't appear that there's any kind of favoritism or any inappropriate use of public funds. So, yeah, that's kind of the standard on it.
So, thank you, and I think we're all in agreement that we should have a process, again, so that every individual has a fair shot at any grant money, every business, and this is really more for legal money. I don't think individuals would really fall into this, but maybe what we would do is this a work session where we kind of provide Ms. Lupton with some guidance, or how do you guys want to go about leading this up? I'm
I
open to
suggest,
it.
while people are thinking about their own feelings about this, that we have it as a discussion item till we get it done. If it goes to work session as a discussion item, if there's nothing to say at that meeting, I think we need to get this done. This is an important program for us and for the community. It also has a time limit on it, which I don't approve of, but, so that's just my suggestion. We keep it on the agenda as a discussion item until we get it done.
What's wrong with the timeline?
Pardon me?
What's wrong with the timeline? It says 30
Well,
days.
March 31st is what I'm talking about here. That's the limit on applications. I don't think there should be such a limit, that people don't stop working and stop getting ideas or stop making plans in March. And the money is I'm doing discussion, which we should probably postpone, but the money is flexible. I mean, it's $20,000 now. If council identified a $20,000 project, that we really wanted this because this was gonna be a game changer for the village. And it was leveraged $2 million, let's say. We would do that in a heartbeat as just a supplemental appropriation to pour more money into that fund. So I don't think it should be time limited by the calendar at all. The people can submit their requests until money runs out. If we need more money, we can talk about it.
All right, Mr. Reed, I'm gonna stop you right there, and we can add this as a discussion item for the January 24th meeting, but then start really kind of formalizing our ideas, so that way
I
we,
would add it to the work session.
just work session,
I think
February.
already decided January 20th was gonna be devoted to goals.
Yeah, no, I said 24th, like as a discussion
Oh,
item.
council, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, you
council
said
meeting.
24th, not 20th.
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
yes.
I don't have my brain in front of me here, so
That's
I'm not
okay.
able to keep track of days.
And then that way we can start framing, we'll take the framework that Ms. Lupton and staff provided and then
Excellent
keep adding.
idea. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
All right, that concludes our discussion items. And we only have one more executive session, which we will not be coming back. So,
Mayor?
yes.
He didn't sign up as a visitor, but sir, did you want to introduce yourself? He's been sitting here the whole night.
No, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Neil Burbrick. My boss purchased Jim's Diner. And just want to introduce myself. We're going to be opening a cigar shop.
Oh, not a diner?
Not a diner. That would take way too much work.
Now, you're not grandfathered in though, are you?
It doesn't matter. It's a freestanding building.
Awesome.
Yeah.
He's already been to zoning and everything. So.
Yeah, he went to zoning and fire marshal this morning, so shouldn't be an issue.
Cool. So you're gonna have a smoking lounge in there?
Yes, sir. Just cigars, no e-cigs or any of that stuff.
Well,
Best of luck to you.
yeah, best of luck. Welcome to the book. This makes John
I didn't mean
happy.
to put you on the spot.
No,
It's
thank
okay,
you, Chief, thank you. Yes, I know I kind of skipped over visitors on our agenda. And before we go, do we have anybody else that wishes?
I'd just like to say, this was a rough one. appreciate all you guys do.
Thank you.
Not even over.
Motion to go into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G88, information directly related to requests that involves public infrastructure improvements.
Is there a second?
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Terry?